Slow and steady, it's the process of growing organs in a lab that's slated to be a lifesaver, according to pioneers in the medical field like Dr. Anthony Atala.
There's so many patients on the transplant wait list, and often they have to wait until someone dies before they can get an organ. So part of the solution of regenerative medicine is to be able to have these organs ready-made. So when the patient needs it, we can just have it right there for them.
It's an intricate collaboration happening inside Wake Forest's Richard H. Dean Biomedical Research Building.
How are things going? Oh, I love that pentachrome stain. Aren't they great? You get to see 5 stains in one slide.
Here you'll find many moving parts to what seems like science fiction. Growing new tissues and organs in a lab? Well, it's a reality made possible with this high-tech printer. The first step, retrieving a cell sample from a patient about the size of a postage stamp. Then cells are placed into a mold, and the next steps are similar to baking a cake.
We place the cells one layer at a time. We then place that mold with the cells in an oven-like device that has the same conditions as a human body. And we then are able to place that structure back into the patient a few weeks later.
And that's not all. The long-term goal is to be able to create and implant different organs and tissues like this jawbone, check it out, a nose, and even ears. So what are we looking at here, Dr. Atala?
So this is actually what muscle tissue really looks like inside your body under the microscope. And what we have to do, of course, is we have to really reproduce that structure when we make it in the laboratory. So this is really like a guide for us. This is what we need to achieve.
It's an exciting and intricate process where you won't find scientists sitting around on this project. There's a lot of action going into every fiber and detail to ensure lab results built here are perfectly molded through a team effort.
Did you make these, Tanya?
Kyrie made them.
Carrie, good job, Carrie. All right, you're the man.
A collaboration in the medical field has proved to be critical, especially since 25 years ago, this process was done by hand.
We still have many years to go to implant the most complex organs, which are the solid organs, like the heart or the liver.
Our lives are largely online.
The internet's like a knife.
And investigators say they only expect the dangers associated with that fact to continue to rise.
There's things you can do with a knife that you can't do with any other tool. But it's extremely sharp and it's extremely dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing with it, it'll cut you and it'll leave a mark for a lifetime.
Kevin Roten is the special agent in charge of the Computer Crimes Unit at the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. He said in 2020, he and his team saw an astronomical increase in the number of tips coming into their office about internet crimes involving children.
We have more children online than have ever been online before, at the same time as we have more adults and unfortunately more offenders, all at the same time.
Roten says on average, tips go up 10 to 15% per year. In 2020, the tips went up by more than 100%, increasing from around 4,000 tips to more than 9,000 tips.
It's a little bit staggering.
Roten and his team of investigators assisted in the Savannah Childress case. The Denton teen was found with a man she met online in Arkansas. The search for her captured national attention and has sparked new questions about kids' online safety during the pandemic.
It got a lot of media attention, and I don't mean to belittle it, but it's one we see every other week or every week sometimes.
At the FBI Charlotte, North Carolina field office, investigators are also pushing to keep up with the number of tips and the sophistication of predators online, as some platforms allow for heightened levels of anonymity.
Even though kids are comfortable online, it's possible that they may be naive to just how much effort predators will go to develop a relationship with them, a friendship, even if it's fictitious.
FBI agents in Charlotte also helped Davidson County authorities and the SBI in the search for Savannah.
I wish that the public could take a look behind the curtain on just how much work went into that particular case and has gone into numerous cases before that. It takes an incredible amount of resources to do the work that was done on that case, including reaching out to foreign countries.
Jason Kaplan, a supervisory special agent with the FBI, specializes in investigations involving crimes against children and human trafficking. He says as the need continues to rise, he and his agents will continue to put in the work.
Once in a while, I'll encounter an FBI agent or a police officer who finds out what I do and what my agents work on, and they'll say something to me like, I could never do that. And my response over the years has changed, and it's a little aggressive, but I'm just like, well, shame on you. because these kids are the most vulnerable. These victims are absolutely the most vulnerable part of our community. We have to protect them. There's a lot of people who want to hurt them.
Investigators say these kinds of crimes are traumatic not only for the victim, but for a community. They can be, however, a catalyst for conversation within a family to take time to understand how the internet is being used at home and who may be on the other side of a chat.
We need to talk with them about how to use that tool safely. We need to show them the ways to do that, because there is a lot of deep, dark places you can go to on the internet, and you're only 2 or 3 clicks away from them.
On the surface, it is a grand and beautiful place nestled along the northern shore of Lake Phelps. But Somerset is a ghost of its former self, a piece of history with a haunting and not so pretty past.
Somerset Place was the 3rd largest slaveholding plantation in the state of North Carolina. The plantation existed from 1785 to 1865.
Karen Hayes first started working at Somerset Place 20 years ago. She remembers her first day on the job.
When I first visited Somerset Place, once I stepped out of the car, it was very emotional for me. It kind of, it's one of those upset stomach type of emotions.
This is a place where 861 enslaved people labored over 80 years, where no one was granted freedom until the end of the Civil War. A place where some dared to run away, but were always captured. Somerset was first owned by 3 men known as the Lake Company, but Josiah Collins soon became the sole owner. A canal 6 miles long, 20 feet wide, played a vital role at Somerset and was used to operate saw and grist mills.
The canal itself was dug from 1786 to 1788. It was dug by enslaved labor from the 80 enslaved people that were brought directly from the west coast of Africa. This is a reconstructed one-room slave home.
Most of the enslaved people lived in houses like this, 9 people crowded into one room. Children slept on the floor. The fireplace was used for heating and cooking in the winter.
They were issued 3.5 pounds of salted pork per hand per week, meal, flour, rice, and molasses. But they supplemented their diets with fish from the lake, trapping small animals like rabbits and raccoons.
Vegetables were grown in patches behind the house. Slavery was a profitable institution, with black lives here at one point valued at over $142,000. The value of enslaved females determined by the number of offspring.
Sookie Davis was purchased for 60 pounds in 1786.
Sookie Davis, who had 131 direct descendants, was considered a, quote, major investment to the landowner and a matriarch in the enslaved community.
So she would teach them things, what to do and what not to do. Don't go inside of the owner's compound, complete your chores as assigned, things of that sort for their safety, for survival.
A slave hospital on site was critical to survival on the plantation, where living in close quarters put enslaved people at greater risk for infectious disease. Medical treatment covered everything from malaria to broken bones to toothaches.
I mentioned tooth extractions. That would have taken place here with the tooth key and the tooth pliers.
Painful reminders of a hard life. One woman treated here after she tried to run away was captured and held overnight in stocks as punishment.
Well, the weather became extremely cold. Her feet froze and amputation was required to save her life. There were whippings here. That was one of the punishments within the slave community, being whipped by the overseer, being placed in the stock, and being sold.
Life at Somerset changed forever during the Civil War when the Collins family fled to Hillsborough.
But they left behind some of the elderly ones and the ones that were too ill to travel. And there were threats that were made against Josiah Collins that if he returned after the Civil War, that they would attempt to kill him.
When slavery ended, the Collins family lost the property. It was restored and reopened as a state historic site in 1969.
Looking for help in fighting this debilitating disease.
Good morning. Hi. Welcome back.
Edward James Henderson, Jr.
Patients like 74-year-old retired Air Force Colonel Edward Henderson, Jr. He's here with his wife Muriel for his 90-day checkup.
Hey, Aaron. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Henderson. How are you guys?
How are you guys doing?
Like a revolving door, over the course of 4 hours, at least a half dozen specialists enter the room.
Big breath. And out. Now suck in hard for me. Suck in hard. Good.
They put him through a battery of tests to see if his condition has stabilized, improved, or gotten worse.
Fill up your lungs all the way, all the way, all the way. Then blow hard and fast. Go, 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 go. You ready? And squeeze. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Good, and relax.
Good.
You ready? Go ahead. And stop. Good.
Doctors diagnosed Henderson with ALS nearly 3 years ago. He immediately joined a support group and got this advice.
Don't put your head in the sand. You know, ALS is a monster.
A monster the doctor said would likely kill him within 6 months to a few years.
It was emotional to hear that. The fact that you had to actually think about what it may feel like to die. It really got my attention, the fact that I may not be around that long. What do I need to do to get my family ready and get all the affairs in order? Because 6 months was a short period of time.
What do you feel about your strength?
I would like to do more weight training, but I know that's not the right thing to do.
He has already lost 4 friends to ALS. 16,000 people can have the disease at any given time. Vets like him are twice as likely to get it.
It turns your life upside down.
Hey.
Hey there.
55-year-old Arthur Patch of Greensboro got the awful diagnosis in March of this year. He thought he had a pinched nerve. He's here with his wife, Terry.
So when they told me it wasn't a complete shock, but it was still, you know, a devastating diagnosis.
It blew us away, just really shocked us. I think, you know, I still tear up about it.
You know, it's progressive. It doesn't happen all at once, but it's, you know, it's a gradual thing, and you know, if it follows course, eventually it'll take everything from you.
Both men are on supplements they hope will slow the disease down and give them a better quality of life, but they're praying for a cure. For now, they're putting their lives in the hands of this man, Dr. Richard Bedlack, one of the rock stars in the field. He always greets patients wearing a flashy suit, hoping to take some of the sting out of the bad news he often delivers.
Today I'm going to see 14 people with ALS in this clinic, and the last person that I see needs me to be fully charged when I go in there. I can't be tired, I can't be sad from the 13 people that I saw before. I've got to be full blast when I go into that room, full of positive energy, and the clothes really help.
So how many of these funky looking suits do you have?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess it depends who you ask. My wife would probably say too many. I don't know. I ideally, I'd never wear the same thing twice, but she tells me that's not going to be possible. So I've got a lot. How do you think you've been doing in the last few months?
No, not bad at all.
Today, there is no new bad news for Edward Henderson, who's having problems with his right hand and is afraid he might be getting worse.
I think that your exam looks very similar, if not even a little bit better compared to last time. So this is excellent news. Because as you know, with ALS, most commonly what we see is people look a little bit worse each time. Right. So the fact that things look mostly better from last time is terrific.
Dr. Bedlack also brings good news about some upcoming clinical trials that could be a game changer.
I'm looking to see if I can reverse ALS.
Still to come in this hour, we'll take you inside the lab where we explain the studies and how they just might lead to that cure.
This is not a garage. This is a wood shop, a treasure trove of beautiful crafted wood. It's a second home for Dennis Rothfuss. He spends hours here every day.
I just love it. I mean, I can just do it all day long. This is a pool stick holder, and it hangs on the wall.
This is a custom design Dennis created for a firefighter who is also a diver and a medic. Dennis makes everything from jewelry boxes to urns to toys. Take a moment to look at all the detail. You can see Dennis is passionate about woodworking, but he can barely see it all. he is legally blind.
If I use my right eye, I couldn't tell if he was a male or a female out of my right eye. My left eye, I can clear things up fairly good in one little area.
It all began when Dennis was 9 years old and had to have surgery to remove his appendix.
Took me into recovery and they told my parents that everything is good. He's going to be back in his room in about 30 minutes. When my parents got in my room, I was dead. I wasn't breathing. They said I was dead at least 8 minutes. After I woke up, I couldn't see for 24 hours. I couldn't see nothing.
Eventually, Dennis began to see. It wasn't the same, but it didn't blind his ambition. In his 20s, he built houses, owned his own construction business while managing his family's 5,000-acre farm in Kansas. And for 8 years, he owned a hotel. All was well into his 40s when everything became a big blur and he decided to call it quits.
And this is my plans that I had to build this stagecoach. This is all I had.
Wow. But Dennis never gave up on woodworking or working a job. He searched and found tools like the Acrobat magnifying glass to help him design and create wooden pieces.
This one goes short, this one is a little longer, and this one's longer now.
And he uses special sticks to help him measure before cutting. Dennis looked for a job and found one in 2010 at IFB Solutions in Winston-Salem, the largest employer of blind and visually impaired people in the country. He is a sewing machine operator, one of more than 450 workers here. Dennis is part of a team making back pocket flaps for Air Force uniforms. He is also IFB Solutions Employee of the Year.
His work on a daily basis, his commitment to excellence, he's always out there making sure, working hard, we're getting the products to the soldiers that we serve in the field.
I never got to go to the armed services because of my blindness, my low vision. And now I'm getting to serve.
Dennis says IFB was the perfect solution for his life. He now has purpose and a vision. He's just weeks away from completing a studio he built by himself.
Never give up. Always figure out a way to do it. Just don't give up. Don't think that you can't do it. You can do it. That's my motto. You do it.
San Diego's a long way down from Winston-Salem, but Baker says the water always feels like home, even though a few jitters are bubbling up toward the surface.
I feel like I definitely have to rein in my nerves. I feel like if I think too much about even next year, I'm already getting nervous, but I think it'll really sink in once I get on the plane to fly to Singapore.
That's where she is right now, training for the World Aquatics Championships. But she's had a lot of issues weighing her down as she works toward her goals.
She started with going through the flu, into pneumonia, into breaking a rib from coughing so hard during the pneumonia. That kept her out for 5 weeks of no hard swimming because she couldn't breathe hard.
My spring has literally been full of adversity. Like, I haven't had this hard of a spring in years. So it's definitely taken a lot of, I would say, like, mental toughness to keep it positive.
Take your mark. Go!
Having him believe in me, and I think he knows that when I get out there, I love to race, and I tend to race higher than sometimes my talent level, ability level is, and I think that's something that I know I have the ability to do. It's just really to put everything aside, like, regardless of how I really feel in the water, and really just go out there and race.
Baker and her coach, David Marsh, both know how tough she is, and that quality on top of her talent is propelling her career.
Heading into Korea, she's going to need to look at this as another chance to learn more about herself, and when you're at Olympic Games, this will be a chance to sort of continue to grow her strength through dealing with adversity.
Baker's also learning about leadership.
Isn't it so perfect? It's just like...
Her teammates value her input and appreciate her example.
She really is the definition of what it takes to be an Olympian, what it takes to be a world record holder. And it really pushes me to see how hard she works in the days that I'm struggling.
When I first started training with this elite group, I was 14, 15 years old and didn't even speak a word. So coming full circle now to being able to give advice on some technical things, and really my coach comes to me for stuff, and that sort of makes me feel good that I feel like I sort of know what I'm doing.
At this point, Baker, her teammates, and Coach Marsh are tapering their workouts in the water and focusing on technique.
It is time to dial in.
Little things that could have a big impact on the results.
The 100 backstroke is probably the toughest event, the most deep event in the world. There are as many as 8 different women vying for best in the world spot, and all are within tenths of each other.
I just hope I get my hand on the wall somewhere in the top 3.
Baker currently holds the world record for the 100 backstroke, and she knows the other swimmers are coming for her title.
I don't always think like the pressure is something that's like a bad thing. I use pressure in a positive way. That gives me adrenaline to swim well.
She's just hoping it'll be fast enough to bring more medals back to the USA.
I think there's no bigger honor for me than to be able to put my Olympic flag cap on with my name on it at Worlds or whatever international meet I go to. It's so exciting, and it's so amazing if I get to stand on the podium and hear my national anthem, and I'm so happy that I get to go and represent my country, and I just have a lot of fun doing it.
But first, focus and the finishing touches.
So I think you can go out, and then at the end of your extension, just lock it. I think you're going pretty well.
I'm going to do one more.
I figured you would. I'm not going to tell you any corrections after this next one.
Okay.
That's it. When I tell her too much, she wants to do too much, and she does too much. That's Kathleen Baker.
When faced with the option to sink, she swims for her hometown, her country, and for herself.